Dr. Arthur Weglein. He is the Distinguished University Chair in Physics at University of Houston, where he's a professor now in the Department of Physics and the Department of Earth and Atmospheric Science. And Professor Weglein is the director of the Mission-Oriented Seismic Research Program, a research consortium supported by the major oil and service companies in the world. And Dr. Weglein, he served as SCG Distinguished Lecturer in 2003 and was awarded the SCG Reginald Fessenden, I hope my pronunciation that is okay, award in 2010. And in 2008, he received the Distinguished Townsend Harris Medal from the City College of the City University of New York for his contributions to exploration seismology. And finally, in 2016, Weglein received the Maurice Ewing Medal, which is the SCG highest honor and award. So to start everything, I would like to thank the EEG student chapter from UFBA for organizing this. Second, I would like to thank, I would like to say it's an honor to be here today talking to Dr. Arthur Weglein. And I know he likes Bahia and he likes Brazil a lot. So we have something in common besides geophysics, for sure. And I still remember when I first introduced myself to him in person. This was in SCG 2018 in Anaheim, where I attended your talk and went to you and say, hi, Arthur, I'm Odette. And you say, oh, Odette from Bahia. That's so nice to finally meet you. So that's a memory that I keep always in my mind. So let's talk a bit, but I will start like with a nice question for you that you can give an introduction about you and start talking about it. Because I know you spent some time in Brazil and in Bahia, you have many friends there. So I hope our Sunny and Reinan, I believe they're attending this conversation, this talk today. So you introduce yourself, and if you can share with us like a special memory, like one that you would like to share with us about the time you spent in Bahia. It's with you, Weglein.
Yes, well, first, thank you for this opportunity to communicate with you and EAG chapter in Salvador Bahia. Brazil is a very special country, and Bahia is a very special place in that very special country. And it, there is a music and an interest. It's sort of an informality. Maybe it's because there's an up and down side in every culture, and because there's been less than perfect upward mobility, people tend to relax more, because if you can't move up, what's the rush? Why go crazy? Just have a coconut and go to the beach and relax, play football, and enjoy your friends. And so in America, England was very similar. It surprised me, because in England, everyone believes they know what their place is and where they belong. The United States is very different. Everyone here believes they should be somewhere up, or not them, the children. Upward mobility, work hard, work on the weekend, keep working, keep looking for opportunity. When I would work on the weekend in Salvador Bahia, people thought I was completely insane. Okay, and so the biggest, the warmth to the people there, a naturalness, an enjoyment of life. For reasons I'm saying, it's a good and bad. In the United States, it's the maximum opportunity, economic, and freedom and choices. I'm 99 years old. I want to go become a medical doctor. Great, go for it. That's American attitude. And other countries, it's sort of set. And in Brazil, I got a sense that the poor peoples in the favela, they knew there was not much opportunity. Where they were is where they're going to be, is where their children are going to be. So whatever types of pleasures they enjoyed. And when the weekend came, it came. And you didn't have to have a calendar to know when it was Friday night. The world changed it. And here, Friday night's another night. Okay, tomorrow I'll do some more work.
I agree.
So I enjoyed the juices there, suca, calde de cana, the coconut juice.
Water, the coconut
So
water.
much. Yes.
I miss that so much.
Coconut water. Baby beef.
Yeah.
That restaurant. And very special for me and my family. It was a wonderful. We lived on the beach outside of Salvador Bahia, in near Laura de Flores, in Paul Stouffer's home. We rented it, and it was like paradise. So run on the beach, listen to music. It was interesting. The students were amazing. They came from a national exam they had to pass, and it was very, very selective. And the students worked hard, but it was similar to England in a way. It surprised me. Because in England, again, students work hard, they don't advertise it. In Brazil, you're not going to say, I worked for 3 weeks and I never slept.
That's so true.
In America, you say, I worked like for the last year, I haven't slept. You say, good, go for it. So
live the dream.
It's being proud of working hard. And so I had the pleasure of meeting many capable professors, Milton Porsani, and some people in Petrobras, Andre Romanelli, Paulo Carvalho, Jose Eduardo Lira, to name a few. And there was a very hospitable university. And one of the benefits was that I was a visiting professor. So all I had to do was teach classes and do research. And all the other professors there had all the same craziness as a university in America, went for money. And there I just did my work. I got more work done in that year in Brazil than years after or before, because it was free.
Yeah.
The work on multiples would not have happened.
So, as you mentioned, you had some Brazilian students, right? You had some Brazilian students like in Brazil in the 90s, and also in University of Houston, you work with some Brazilian students. So do you see anything in Brazilians like that makes them like different the other students, or kind of special, or something like something unique related to Brazilian students, besides this, that we don't brag a lot that we spend all this time working, and it's
well, one thing is, if you go to a restaurant with Brazilian people, and the music starts, you don't have to say you want to get up to dance. Everybody gets up and dance. So that's wonderful. With other cultures, it's like you say you want to get up and dance. It sounds like they look at you like you're a Martian, What world did you come from here? And so the fact that that's, and it didn't matter who you would dance with, you just got up. Everybody just gets up. And that spontaneity, that the bossa nova, the samba, there's something about that music that, when I understood the words, it was not so good. When I heard Alcione and other people, I said, wow, so romantic, so wonderful. Then I heard the translation. It said, where have you been? Take out the garbage. Walk the dog.
That's
so
true.
I enjoy
it.
In other words, the same issues like everywhere. In Murray, we have to part. And in other words, there's something bad happened and we have to leave. And so the many people, Stan Getz and others, have played that tune. So Brazil is, for me, is unique. It has that combination of Africa, which I play African drums, and from New York, met a great African drummer, Olatunji. So that's a big influence in Brazil, especially in Bahia. And then you have the Portuguese, influence, which is the way it was explained to me is the Portuguese is not like the Spanish. Everything was sort of laid back a bit, you know? And so that there was a combination of, you know, what they say, the samba being a combination of cultures. So that music was special for me before Brazil. I remember hearing it first in a movie called A Man and a Woman. And there was the husband who passed away, had gone to Brazil and went crazy with the music. Came back, couldn't stop playing Brazilian music, you know. And that was the first time I ever heard that. There's something special there. And then I was interested in it, and then had the opportunity to be a visiting professor. And one person, Thomas, was very, I don't know if you know Jose Eduardo Thomas. He was sort of the person who arranged the trips, and he was a good man. Okay, I think he might be retired already from Petrobras. Extremely, it was an extremely positive time, and I've had back since, and each one has been. So there's a place in Rio de Janeiro, okay, called Carioca de Gema.
Yes.
Carioca de Gema. The yellow of the egg. Okay, let me explain to you.
No, I know what it means. Yeah.
It's a place that's amazing in terms of the music, in terms of the atmosphere, in terms of the. They don't call it Carioca de Gema by accident, and so I probably said more than I should to your answer, to your question.
Instead of being Carioca da Gema, it's much better to be Baiano do Pelo, right?
Oh, yeah, well, for sure.
Yeah, I know. So, okay, I have a bunch of questions here that like some people who are attending the talk we are watching, they sent. So I'm going to switch the gears now and start a little bit about like your career, for example.
Sure.
So you have a bachelor's in math and you have a master's and a PhD in physics. And then now you work with this world of geophysics, which is like something really normal nowadays. There are many people in UFBA who have like the main from years ago, and still nowadays they sweep the gears a little bit. So what made you fall into the geophysics career, the path?
After you're right, Odette. And after the Ph.D. in physics, I was at the University of Texas as a postdoc again in physics. And then it's normal to look for a faculty position in physics. There were none. For several hundred PhDs that year, there were 1 or 2 openings. And so people like Bob Stolt and myself and others, physicists, where there were no opportunities for faculty in physics, went to oil. In my case, I was very hesitant, but I have family, wife, children, responsibility. They need to eat regular, okay?
Yeah, important.
I had to solve that problem, that physics problem. So petroleum I was in Texas, and so I didn't, the idea of petroleum, you come from New York City, you think of some fat guy with legs up on the table, cowboy boots, smoke a cigar, just destroy the world, go destroy the environment, And so, but to my surprise, great surprise, it was very different. My experience, I'm not saying for everyone, but my experience in the petroleum industry was amazing. I had freedom. I arranged. That was the most freedom I ever had for me to go. ARCO arranged for me to go to Brazil. Very unusual. And they arranged for Paulo Carvalho to spend a year with us in ARCO. So I was very fortunate in my different. So why did I go to oil? I went to oil to earn a living. Okay. My original dream was to be a physics professor. So at some point, I left industry and went to the university in Earth and Atmospheric Sciences and then for some reason moved to physics with a chair professor, the highest chair at U of H. And so at the end of that whole trip, I started out as a physicist, wanting to be a professor, and the end now, my dream job of being a physics professor, working in seismic physics, but as a physics professor, came true. So it's amazing. I never expected in my life that I would end up in this place.
That's great. And that brings me also to the new question. So in this more than 5 decades that you're dedicating to science, what still fascinates you about geophysics and science in general?
Well, interesting problems. In exploration geophysics interests me in particular. Okay, I don't know anything about that deep earth, Soho Moho, but the shallow earth where there's petroleum interests me for the following reason. It has a very interesting way of measuring progress. If every single step in the seismic processing chain has methods currently for in a toolbox for every single separate the reference wave from the reflection data, de-ghost, get free surface multiples, internal multiples, depth imaging, and so on. Amplitude. And one of those has a set of capabilities currently. And every one of those methods has times when they're effective and times when they're not. And that's true at every algorithm. So if you want to make progress, yes, you have to produce an algorithm that when the petroleum ministry applies it, they have an improved drill success rate. So that's very exciting that you could change. In other words, in the deep water Gulf of Mexico, the success rate in the frontier is 1 in 10. 1 in 10. At $200 to $300 million a drill in the deep water Gulf of Mexico. And that has not changed in 25, 30 years. That rate has not changed with all the geophysics and all the SEG, EAG, okay? And all the self-congratulations of how wonderful we are. I have a meeting, SEG, every day is a success, EAG, the same. And you go and look in the deep water, something's not perfect. So that disconnect interests me. The disconnect between what some researchers say, we've solved everything, everything's under control. It's sort of, there's little cosmetic things, but that is far from true, okay? There's a reality out there defined by petroleum drilling. So that disconnect in terms of defining why there are problems and then solving them interests me. Especially if people say the problem is impossible, then it very much interests me.
No. So as you mentioned, like you mentioned SEG now, just speaking from that you mentioned, you got the Maurice Ewing, I don't know if that's the pronunciation, medal, which is like the highest thing that they can give to a person for your contributions, which are like distinguished from all the contributions to both the advance of science and you're in exploration geophysics too. So how did you feel with getting this really high award?
Overwhelmed. Just overwhelmed. I'd say I started my life in the South Bronx of New York City. Went to vocational high school where people were sent to have no academic capability. So just go there, get a job. And to end up in this place and have a career and then have recognition is beyond my wildest dream, beyond. And so I feel someday I'm going to wake up and find out that that's a dream. So I'm hugely grateful to my wife and family for giving me the support and encouragement all these years that allowed these things to happen. And for all the wonderful colleagues that have been supportive. Stolt, Romanelli, Carvalho, and others. Lira, great guy, Lira. You know Jose Eduardo Lira?
Yes.
Jose Eduardo Lira?
Yeah.
He's a treasure, right?
Yeah.
So a short answer is I'm overwhelmed. I'm honored, as I am honored to be in this interview. Okay, but
it's really encouraging, like all your story, because I didn't know like your dream was to be a professor in physics, and like you pursued so many things in the middle of that. Like you achieved so many good things, and nowadays you are a professor in the physics department there, but working with something that at the same time, as I say, it still amazes you, you know, because of the challenges and the gap and all the I know you like the difficult things, right? So it's really encouraging. Like I'm really glad you're sharing with us.
Well, Odette, you're very kind and generous, and I appreciate what you're saying.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So now about career. So as you said, all of this amazing story to us, like what advice would you give to young geophysicists who are starting now their career in research, in academia, or in the industry?
That's a difficult question. In 2003, after the SEG tour I went on, I had an interview, and a similar question was asked by the leading edge in an interview. And I said, I don't have a crystal ball to know what will be the future, but what I believe, the students study hard, learn to study hard in depth. That's transferable. Right now, the ministry is not in good shape. Positions in research are difficult to get. And there was a downturn in the petroleum industry starting about 2014. And then the economic problems in the world, and then the virus, the COVID virus, all add on top of it. So companies are letting people go. 15%, 20%, large companies. So, but by the time graduate students or undergraduates graduate, things could be different. Yes, it could turn up. In other words, there are going to be fewer companies. And at some point, that commodity, petroleum, is going to be where after people get over this wind and solar, that's, unless the government gives tremendous investment, and people are going to get tired of that, okay? The petroleum, the economics of the energy you get from petroleum is why it's of interest. It's not political, okay? It's not religious. The amount of energy you get from a barrel of petroleum and how much it costs to get it is not matched by any other resource. So that's a reason to have some kind of optimism, yes, that things might return. But right now, things do not look good. Maybe in Brazil, you know, Petrobras, amazing company, and maybe there are opportunities. I would suggest the following. As you know very well, that try to get internship. Petrobras, other companies, PGS and CGG and Schlumberger are all located in Brazil. When you have an internship, it's the company is not hiring you. It's for the summer. So they're a little relaxed more than hiring, but it is an extended interview where you're looking at them and they're looking at you. So I would work very hard, okay, if I got an internship opportunity, because nowadays I'm hearing that an internship is necessary for a company to consider you. So if you can arrange, talking about a student, you've done that yourself, yes, Odette, in different companies. And I think that's very smart. I think also being in a company as an intern gives you an idea of what it is to be in a company, an oil company, and do research. Maybe
I agree.
that interests you, and maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, why make yourself crazy? You know, life is short. You're Brazilian. You know, you have to have some fun in life. America, when my chairman says, sorry, I wasn't available Saturday. I said, what? You have a life? This is America. We have no life. We got to work. There's a joke.
It's funny because I organized like the questions and I didn't know what you're gonna ask, what are you gonna answer for the previous question. But my next question would be, how do you see the partnership between academia and industry in the development of the applied and exploration geophysics? So it's good because there was a bridge there.
Yes, good question. That relationship, having worked in the petroleum industry, and then looking at how did I look at academic activity? Well, there are different ways that oil looks at academia. Some it's what are the famous schools? MIT, Stanford, Caltech, Harvard. If you hire someone from there, yes, and it doesn't work out, who could blame you? It was MIT. In fact, it has to work out because it's MIT. Okay, so the idea is that oil companies look for supporting groups like ours and CWP, where there's some activity in the university that they see is relevant to their interests, could complement what they're doing inside by something outside, and could be a source of students that they could hire. So those are different parts of that relationship. What did the university get? They get money. And money supports graduate students, supports faculty summer, supports facility. Universities, if they're smart, will talk to oil people to find out what the problems are. So it's a relationship where each gets, in difficult times, which we're in now, research is one of the things that's in most danger because it doesn't immediately bring money.
Yes.
So, but for people who are young, capable, hardworking, study your geophysics like you're going to work in oil, but learn all the tools. Let's say it falls apart. Petrobras, every company related to oil is not hiring anyone in Brazil. Go to medical imaging. People always get sick. They're going to stay sick for a long time. And they have techniques for the defining cancer, heart, yes, tumors, eye problems, which are very similar. They send something in, right? A wave in, wave comes out. Sounds like seismic, sounds like medical imaging. So if you develop, let's say, the math, physics, and some depth about what you do seismically, yes, that's transferable. If all you know is stack, VSP, or the jargon, that's not transferable.
That's true.
Okay?
I agree.
So you go to the medical and say, how would you like to do VSP? You know, that's it's what's the mathematical physics about VSP or so and so on. That if you understand that, you can imagine how it's transferable. Because I didn't study geophysics, I studied physics. I went to oil. You know how I actually became a geophysicist officially?
No.
Because a long time ago with oil, people said, I'm a mathematician, even though I'm in oil. I'm a physicist. I'm a computer science. Another person, I'm a geophysicist. Everybody was very careful, want their identity, you know, where they came from. Until one day things changed. There was a very high price of oil, and they had a hard time keeping people in the company. Yes.
So you
And they
had to
said-
say I'm a geophysicist.
No, they said whoever's a geophysicist gets a free car, $50,000 car. They said,
Wow.
I said, what about physicists? No, just geophysicists. They said, who's a geophysicist? Right then, I got the idea. It came to me, like a light.
Yeah, that's great. So we got a question.
We need some jokes, yes?
Yeah, we need
Jokes,
a
words.
question here related to what you were saying, like fascinated about geophysics and everything, from Professor Wilson Figueroa from UFBA. So he asks, hello, Professor Arthur, Bahia is waiting for you again. Question, today or in the near future, is there some geophysical development able to improve significantly our knowledge of the Earth interior?
Yes. Is there? Yes. Are there methods yet to be developed? Yes. That can better understand, define, and delineate the Earth? Yes. The methods we have, people who think, I'm comfortable. I got my act together. I can take care of every problem geophysically. Those people probably don't understand what they're doing themselves, okay? And they don't recognize the limitations of what they're doing. The real Earth is more complicated than any algorithm we'll ever have, any model. So everything we do in some sense is approximate and needs to be improved. It's not a closed subject. So to answer the professor's question, I think we should welcome and encourage new thinking beyond ourselves. In other words, if a student can supersede us, yes, with an idea beyond us, we should welcome that, because whatever we do at any time is only temporary. Science is a work in progress. So that's a long answer, but the answer is there are ideas, but we need more ideas to get an improved picture of the Earth. It'll never be perfect. It's too complicated.
So now asking a little bit about your role at the MOSRP. So
Yes.
I don't pronounce it wrong. Like some students have some questions about it. So for example, what are the research opportunities that a student can expect to find in the MOSRP group? In other words, what are the main research topics in the group?
Well, the group, it takes ownership of every step in the processing tree, because some groups will say, I'm migration, but there's many steps that data has to go through before migration. They have to be done well. And if they're not done to some standard, the method that you're looking at is going to have difficulty. So we take ownership of all the methods, as I said, starting with separating reflection data from the direct wave, and then deghosting, and then taking data that's deghosted. Wave goes down from the source, and you're recording the wave that's moving up at the receiver, deghosted data, in other words, and then separating reflection data by how many upward reflections it has. If it's one upward reflection, then it's a primary. If it has two or more upward reflections, it's a multiple. And then if the location of the downward reflection between two up is at the free surface, it's a free surface multiple. And then, so free surface multiples come out. We've developed methods for that, internal multiples to come out, and depth imaging, nonlinear AVO, Q compensation. The thing that we've accomplished is that every step in the processing tree can, in principle, be achieved without knowing, estimating, or determining subsurface properties. So I would say the students that we've taken in the last, I've been at U of H now 20 years, mainly have come through physics. and getting PhDs in physics. And then they get oriented to seismic. We train them. So graduate students, and occasionally there are opportunities for postdocs, but that's a little more difficult because some postdocs who have a PhD might not be oriented with the amount of mathematical methods in physics that we expect. So you get one thing is not to be discouraged. Paulo Carvalho, Petrobras, the pioneer of free surface multiple removal. He arrived in the group and it was amazing, the math physics he was doing. I didn't know his undergraduate was geology.
Wow.
He learned all the math physics he needed without speaking, I just did it. And his thesis is amazing. So for people who don't worry, there's no benefit to worry. If there's something you need to do, just do it. Just look ahead and get strength from what you have achieved, whatever it is, to help go forward. And if you can do some work in your life, it doesn't have to be geophysics, by the way. I don't feel that geophysics is wonderful, okay? You know, but there's some people, physicists, say, I'm a physicist and I'm higher than geophysics. Geophysics is higher than geology. That's nonsense. Each is just a job. And the idea is, if you can enjoy your work, you are blessed. You are very fortunate. There are very few people on this earth who can get paid and enjoy what they do. So if you can find that in geophysics, wonderful. If you can find it in something else, also wonderful. Look for what matches your interest and ability and be happy. That's true. It's never a higher or lower. There's some students don't work out with us. It's not a match, but they go in there, a match somewhere else, a great success. That's wonderful. If you had a problem with machine language, yes, and you said, Weglein, how about take a look? You got the wrong guy. I couldn't log into this meeting. So everything is the idea, have a match and be happy. You follow? Just find a match.
Yes. Yeah. So following the question, what are the key elements needed in order to be accepting a research group as MOSRP? So like, what does the group expect from these students?
Well, the students in the physics department, they enter and they have to take certain courses that's called core courses. The problem is some of them are not directly geophysics, but they help build quantitative skill. There's some historic, we're having a relationship with geophysics where it'll be cooperative, where some of our graduate students can take, stratigraphy and geology, which they need. But right now, the main is to answer your question directly, or that what happens is, if there's an interest, we start a relationship with a student and we ask them to give a talk on any topic. It could be a topic they heard in class. We say, let's discuss what the topic is. They choose the topic. Then a few weeks later, they give a presentation on the topic. We want to see the depth they do. Anything. Solve the quadratic equation. We don't care. You understand? We want to see their thinking. But how deep do they push themselves to understand? Yes. So that gives us an indication how they'll study anything. Yes. And so we're looking for that. We're looking for people who are going to say, why, and try to answer. There's more questions than we have answers. Yeah. Again, any professor who thinks they got their act together and it's all clear to them, they're either shallow or they're not doing research, or both. Well, I'll give an example. Richard Feynman, yes, famous physicist, Nobel Prize. They asked him about quantum mechanics. He said, I don't understand quantum mechanics. And those who say they do really don't. So when I was a graduate student, I struggled with quantum mechanics. I didn't read his book until I graduated. But after I read what his concerns were, it gave me some relief. In other words, it's a very complicated subject. And people who say, I got it together, I teach chapter 1, chapter 2, they don't even understand what's going on. It's for them a bunch of math formulas. So I think we need a humility. We need some humor about ourselves, not to take ourselves too seriously. We need to understand and be grateful for all in our life that has given us the opportunity, starting with our family, our parents, our grandparents. They weren't perfect, okay? But you got to remember the positive. If they didn't give what they gave, we wouldn't be here.
That's true.
Very important.
My next question is about the ISS, the inverse scattering series.
Oh, yes.
Which is good. So the inverse scattering series is an important tool for seismic imaging, and your group, I know, works a lot on that. So could you talk a little bit about how this method is important for imaging regions of complex geology?
Well, as I mentioned, there's seismic processing is a sequence of steps. So the inverse scattering series has been the only method in the world that can absolutely remove free surface and internal multiples without any information, okay? So sometimes you need it. In other words, sometimes you have some information. It's a layered earth and something, and you can use radon or other methods, FK filter, yes? You could use Jakubowicz if you have some reference information. But if you were in a region that's extremely complicated, you can't figure out what the generators are, you don't know what's a primary multiple overlapping, machine learning is not going to take that out. Not artificial intelligence. You need some physics that can figure out the difference between a primary and multiple. These algorithms have an intelligence beyond us. Just because we wrote them doesn't mean we understand them. They do things on data. How do they do it? Okay. So the thing that ISS has brought is the possibility and the delivery of methods that can achieve processing goals directly without needing to know, estimate, or determine subsurface properties. That's radical. That's very radical. If you say, I can find the depth and I don't need the velocity. So if you do new things like that, you have a harder time getting support. I think students should know this. If you want to get support or job, yes, better to do some research that's similar to what people are doing. Because if it's similar, they're comfortable. Say, I'm going to do RTM, least squared RTM, LPR, IFWI with primaries and free surface multiple. Oh, FWI, sit down, you know.
We have talked about it before, right?
Yeah. So
when I told you I'm doing FWI, and you said, sit here, let's talk.
Well, FWI not the problem.
I know.
This is very important. Let me explain.
But it's not the solution for everything, too.
Right. It hasn't also lived up to what they said it would. Now they're trying to get a velocity, slow velocity. Before it was going to solve everything. That's not FWI's problem. Please, everyone listen to this. FWI is a method. I'll say a minute about it, okay? But methods don't have an ego. Methods don't have ambition. They're just there. People have ambition. There's a famous saying, statistics doesn't lie, but statisticians do. Okay? Statistics don't lie, but statisticians do. In other words, FWI, people sold it. It is the final and ultimate solution. They wrote that in a workshop. Famous people wrote that, okay? So that's the problem. Why? Because it won't live up to expectation, and then people throw it out. And that's unfortunate because it has some region of opportunity. The same with electromagnetic. Electromagnetic, you don't remember, 15 years ago, major oil, in fact, the biggest private owned oil company in the world decided you don't need seismic, it's all electromagnetic. Electromagnetic is not the problem. Electromagnetic has a use. If you start to overblow it, that's the people. So my problem was not FWI. My problem was the people doing it, okay? What they were saying about it. So speaking of FWI is a model matching. So it's very easy to understand. In the elevator, I can explain it. You give me a real trace, yes? You give me a model trace, yes? And I try to change the model parameter until the two traces look the same. And then the elevator opens, I say, good, I got that idea. So then you say, well, that's not direct inversion. That's sort of searching and looking and hoping and praying, that you'll find it. I'll tell you a direct way to find it, okay? The first thing you have to do is look at the Lippmann-Schwinger equation. What was that other thing you said in the elevator? So the FWI, the model matching is accessible, it's understandable. The reason it's understandable is nothing to understand, okay? And there's no theory. In other words, I'm going to match primaries. No, that's not enough. I'll put free surface on. Oh, now it's full wave, okay? But what about internal? No, that's too full. One not full enough, one full. What's the theory, for what the data you need to find? How come they don't match primary, free surface, and internal? That's fuller, okay? Fuller. Why not just match multiples? In other words, that I don't have a problem with that. For me, you do indirect methods like that where you don't have a physics. Where you have a physics, like, let's say ax squared plus bx plus c is 0, quadratic equation. And you find the roots, minus b plus or minus. That's direct, yes? Today, they wouldn't do that. They would never derive that formula. They get machine learning, okay, AI, search the world for roots, Oh, the problem, we need a bigger computer to find the roots of the quadratic equation. I guarantee you, today, that's what they would do. So the problem is, if you have a direct solution, it gives you confidence that whatever problem you decided, you have solved that problem. Now, there's something even more important. Let's say you have a direct solution, minus b plus or minus, yes? And let's say the quadratic equation you believe is important for seismic. Imagine, yes? So you solve it directly and you drill and it don't improve the drill. The same failure before you and after you. So you know what it tells you? That the quadratic equation, your choice of problem, your interest in that is not the problem you should be interested in. So that's very powerful. For the indirect methods, matching, I match FWI, make it fullest, most happiest, fullest, most pleasant, full, all kinds of full. I'll search globally, you understand? Very fast simulated annealing. And then I drill, it didn't improve. Oh, well, keep searching. Let's find some other search, you understand? You don't, since you don't have a direct solution, you never get the idea that maybe the problem you started out with, your problem of interest is not the problem you should be interested in. Direct solution, if you solve it and then you apply it and it doesn't help the drilling success, you are solving the wrong problem. You need a more complicated problem. So, but in the real world, I don't care how many fancy equations I write, yes? Acoustic, elastic, anelastic, Navier-Stokes, write anything you want. The Earth is more complicated than any equation we write, any physics I write. So if I find a direct solution to some partial differential equation, that's for that model type. The data that comes from the Earth is more complicated. So I believe you should use direct and indirect. You use indirect for the part of the data that you don't know the physics. There's a physics, it's just, the Earth, you send a source, right? Did the wave come in and say, Odette, Arthur, where should I go? What's the equation? It just goes, right? So it knows what to do. It didn't wait for us. So there's a physics there. It's just beyond us. So for the part that's beyond our physics, we need a channel for matching, some indirect criteria that will try to accommodate the part of data that's beyond your model. And there always will be data beyond your model. My problem is the balance. When the indirect becomes, we don't need direct, we don't need minus b plus or minus. Imagine if you took ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 and tried to find the solution by matching. Find a minimal, you know? What if you had a repeated root, complex root? Oh, I'm going to look for complex. See, it's full of the search. You understand? The analog. So use direct where you can, because you have some confidence, knowing that it's never going to be complete because your model is not complete, and use indirect to try to accommodate the part of your data that's beyond your assumed physics. I'm not saying there's no physics in the earth. Of course, that wave knew what to do, didn't need us, right, to tell it what to do. It's just what it's doing and what we're assuming is a gap. That's where indirect, in my view, needs to be.
Okay, it was a great discussion now. I love having this discussion with you and listen to your thoughts. So finally, like our last question here, it's related to that. And like, you're well known for always thinking ahead of your time, like always like trying these extraordinary, like new things. So in your opinion, what will be the future of seismic imaging or seismic processing? In a whole, as you said, like you work in the process and not just the final seismic imaging.
I can say what I would hope.
Okay.
What I would hope is we've shown that it's possible to do depth imaging directly and correctly without a very complicated algorithm. And we published it with a data, Kristen data, North Sea. Data was owned by Exxon, got their approval, cooperated with Schlumberger. It was a serious activity. But that's very embryonic, very early. You need a lot more theory. You need a lot of effort. So people say, well, how come you don't pursue it? Yes. How come I don't pursue it? I said, the price of oil is too low. In other words, when the price of oil is low, the amount of money we get is low. So we have to do things to pay the rent, things that are clearly with some progress, even though they're not conventional. So one thing, what is it, not conventional? See, intuition, when you see something that's, you're going to find depth without the velocity. That's like saying, I go for a walk. I came back in an hour. I went out, came back in an hour. How far did I go? Well, how fast did you go? You know? No. I can't tell you that. I want you to tell me how far you went, and I'm not going to tell you the speed. So they say, well, you must be crazy, right? Which part of crazy you want me to spell for you? Okay. We're used to that because when we said take multiples out without any information, I was at Colorado School of Mines. This is interesting. Giving a talk, the first talk on internal multiple removal, yes, without subsurface information. And I was giving a lecture there. Ken Larner was in the audience, very brilliant, capable man. And he just said, that's impossible, Weglein. We can't even do the primary without the velocity. How are you going to get the multiple out? This talk is over, he said. Even though I had several days, the talk is over. Maybe you got a crazy house here somewhere near Colorado School of Mines. Get yourself.
I can see Ken doing that. I can see oh yeah.
So that night I went to the hotel and I did an example, algebra example, put the data in the algorithm, yes, and showed how the machine works to predict the internal multiple. And in that procedure, no velocity about where, or information about where the multiple traveled was needed, determined, or anything. And when I showed it, Ken, a great man, a huge friend and tremendous resource, encouraged me in my whole life.
He's incredible. Yes.
What he said was, that's right. That's right. In other words, once I showed the detail, he's very smart. he turned 180 degrees from impossible to I got it. And he's always been a friend. No matter what we did, though, after it was, I'm glad to see the multiples coming out. So in his mind, we're doing that. You understand? But John Claerbout once told me something. He said, if when they tell you someone says your name, they say some technical thing, like Claerbout, finite difference migration. Yes? He said, if that happens, you're set. Because they associate with you with something. So don't start to argue with them that I'm Claerbout and I did more than fine. You understand? Just be happy. And so another great man, he and Bob Stolt had a disagreement. Two great men, two tremendous pioneers, and that's resolved. They really had the same view, but it had a different language. Yes. So I've been very fortunate to interact with great people.
Yeah, like myself, like Ken Lerner, he was so important to me, like since I came here to School of Mines. So that, and you and my professors in Bahia, like they're watching now. Like I feel so lucky to have been in touch, in contact, like to learn from these people, to hear from these people, to interact. So yeah, but I'm still in the early career. So maybe when I get to 1% of your level, who knows? So
you're way beyond me already. But I have a favor to ask. Please give Ken Lana abrazos to me, a hug. Yes, and his wife Nancy. Yes.
Now we cannot hug, and we are not seeing in person. But like next time that I talk to him, I will for sure like tell that you mentioned his name and everything else. Yeah. And just also like next week we'll. I will. You know Rule Sneeder? So Rule will be with us next week here. Yes. He will be here next Wednesday. He will be the next person we are going to interview. So for everybody who is watching, next week we have Rule Sneeder. But yes, tell a story, because then I will tell him.
You have a minute to hear about Rule?
Yeah.
We were struggling to try to communicate with oil company people what we're doing, because it's not intuitive, it's not what they're used to, and it's not easy for them. So Rule said something very important. He said, the work you do is not what they're used to seeing. It's not RTM, not FWI, not what they're used to. For them to follow it, what you're doing would require a tremendous investment of time. Yes. And they're very capable, but very busy. So they need to understand why they struggle. So he was very helpful. That's Rule Sneeder.
Yeah, he will be here next week. So with that, I finish, and I will thank the student chapter again, and I will let you give your final words in this conversation today. And thank you so much for being here with me and everything, always being like open to this.
Well, my final words are thank you, gratitude and appreciation for this opportunity, for bringing back memories of Brazil and Bahia. It's like a dream. And just gratitude and appreciation. I'm grateful and appreciative and beyond words to express how fortunate I feel in my life to be where I am with my wife and family and colleagues, and having this wonderful opportunity to visit with you and our UFBA friends and colleagues. So a grande abraços, virtual, to everyone who's on this video, okay?
Okay, thank you very much, and you have an amazing night, and thank you everybody who was with us today. And I see everyone next week, and I will be with Rule Weglein. You are also like really welcome to attend and watch with Rule next week.
Cool.
Yeah.
So thanks a million, and be happy and healthy and safe, everybody.
You too. Be safe, everyone. Tchau, tchau. Boa noite,
Bye.
gente.